for a month. I got back on Thursday. So if I clapped halfway through because of time, just kidding. I went for a month to the Philippines. We went to the island of Luzon and the province of Pangasinan and to the town of Malasiki. And in 2019, my brother went on a mission trip to the Philippines. You can see his group there, he's in the back. And he did a similar thing to what we did this time. And he went to the same place we went, which was pretty cool. This was our group. There was 20 participants, 5 staff. Anthony was a participant last time. I was able to be staff this time. So we had a little bit of a different experience, but it was really cool. They're from all over the United States. We had someone from Canada. Several of us knew each other, and there were some of us that didn't, so it was fun to get to know each other. There's the kids, the participants were ages 14 to 19. And what we were going there to the Philippines to do was to put on a 16-day evangelistic series for adults and kids. And so the Andersons mission trip was for building, ours was for evangelism and preaching. So we kind of went a roundabout way. The way you probably normally fly is going through Taipei in Taiwan and then on to the Philippines. We flew through Istanbul. So it's kind of the opposite way around the world. We had 2 12-hour flights and a 5-hour layover in Istanbul. It was very long, but it was fun. On the way there, just getting to the airport, everybody had their own luggage, and then we had these bins that had all the materials and things that we would need for the mission trip. The organization we went with was called Young Disciple Ministries, and they're the ministry that also does the summer camp that I go to. But they have gone to, like I said before, they've gone to the place that we were going to before, and so they had some materials there already, but we just need to bring some extra things for crafts and slideshow, PowerPoint, things like that. And so we flew with Turkish Airlines, and when we got to the airport, they told us that we weren't allowed to bring bins, that everything had to be in luggage. And that was rather unfortunate for us because we had all these bins, and we're not just gonna go, we had to fly in like 4 hours, so we're not just gonna go out and buy a bunch of suitcases. So we talked to them some more, and they're like, no, you really can't bring them. And we all got into a group, the participants, and some of us staff got into a group to pray that they would let us bring it on while they were still discussing with some of the staff. And eventually, they said, well, just this once we'll let you guys bring the bins. So that was a really cool answer to prayer right off the bat. There was, I think, 16 bins. So it's a lot of things that we would have needed over there if we would have been able to bring it. So we flew out on Monday, February 19th in the evening, and we got there to the Philippines on the evening of Wednesday evening. So Philippines is about 16 hours difference. Now it's 15 hours because of the time change. But so it was a long time traveling, but we were very glad to get there when we made it. We had some people there to greet us from the area that we would be in, and it was fun because some of the same people that were staff for the previous time that Anthony knew came to meet us again. So that was cool. When we got there, the place we stayed at was owned by the Villoso family. This was the area that we stayed at. This is Mr. and Mrs. Villoso. The husband was a pastor in the Philippines for 25 years. And so now he's retired, but they were able to allow us to stay on their property. And I think they really enjoyed seeing us there because we were serving the people that they used to serve. And so it was really cool. Unfortunately, this is the last time. Whitey had gone to this place several years. And because they're getting older, they're having to move. And so this is the last time that Whitey probably will be at that location. So it was, we were grateful to be there because it's with the way the mission trip is, it's a very, very good location. There's lots of places to practice sermons and things like that. And for the group size, there was 25 of us total. These were the cooks for the group, Alan and Benji. They have been cooking for Whitey since 2005. This is the year I was born. So it was really cool to have them. They were such a blessing to us, and they cooked very, very amazing food, Filipino food. These were the huts we stayed in. There was, for the guys, there was 2 people per hut. For the girls, there was about 5 or 6 people per hut. The bathrooms were, you could flush, some of them were flushable. Otherwise, you would take water and you'd throw it in there, and the
centrifugal force?
Yeah, it would cause it to be sucked down. So, and you couldn't flush toilet paper down the toilets because the septic systems and things yeah. And so there was cold showers, but it wasn't too bad because the temperature was around 95 degrees and 60% humidity. It's very nice and warm. So cold showers, and then we did, let's see. Yeah, so that was more of their property. The picture on the left, down at the bottom, is where the area that we would do laundry. Speaking of laundry, it was by hand, again. But it was nice because it was so hot, we were able to, you'd have water. So one thing that really impacted me it was kind of something small. The kids, even though it was really hard work, you would have to put the soap in the water, scrub away your clothes, and bring them out, rinse them several times to get out the soap. The kids never complained. And they were so happy to do things, and it really made an impact on me that even though it was hard work, they were having fun with it, and they could find joy in little things. And so it was fun to watch, and I think they all enjoyed the experience. This was the first Sabbath that we got there. The church there had, a district Sabbath. And so everybody from the area came out from the different churches, and we were able to meet a lot of the people that we would be working with over the next few weeks. And this church they had just built, I think, 3 or 4 years previously. And so it was a nice new church with air conditioning. Not many places had air conditioning. In the afternoon, we got into groups and started discussing with the local people how they could get involved with the meetings as well. So doing things like special music and welcoming people and things like that. So we got to meet all the kids and the adults and things like that would be with us. So it was really cool. The following Sabbaths, the group was divided into 2 different sites in places called barangays. They're like the neighborhood areas. And so one of the sites was at Barangay Abanagan. So this was site 2. When we would go to the churches, they basically had us do everything, but usually it was last minute. So the first Sabbath that we divided up, we came there and they're like, oh, you guys are doing the Sabbath school, and we want you guys to do special music, and we want you guys to preach. So that was a great experience, learning to do things last minute. It was really fun to watch the kids they all got together. The church that I went to, this was up in Auburn. I was at Site 1. This is our church. The kids, when we got there, we were a little bit late for Sabbath school to start, so they were still singing some songs. And the way they do it over there is instead of giving everyone bulletins, they'll just announce the program. And so the lady was announcing the program, and she said, and we have this, and Whitey's going to do the lesson review, and then she keeps going, and we're all like, oh, okay. So all the kids just got together, and they quickly figured out what they were going to do. Our group for morning worships was studying Steps to Christ, so some of the kids picked a chapter each that they would just discuss what they had learned that week. And so it was really cool. And one of the participants, she did a sermon she had preached a couple Sabbaths before at home. So just really, it was really cool for the kids to get the opportunity to, when God calls them to do something, to be able to do that. This was the kids' Sabbath school. It was at the back of the church, and we did a little program for them. Lots of energetic kids, and the kids there are so sweet, and they're always so excited to see you. We were able to, after church, eat with them. They brought all sorts of food, and so you made sure you ate the cooked ones. And the people over there are so giving, and they really, really appreciated us coming. This was Site 2, where they held the meetings. It was outdoors, and where they decided to have it beside the church instead of inside the church. They were just building the church, but the reason they had it outside was because they said that people would be less likely to come inside the church. They would be fine coming outside. So we had the speakers, and we would point one of the speakers towards the audience, and the other we would point towards the neighborhood. So even if there wasn't people necessarily coming to the meetings, there's people surrounding in the neighborhood that got to hear the messages. Which, this site, one of the nights, a lot of the people there know some English, and so one of the meetings they decided to not translate the meetings. And when they got done with it, because the program would go slightly faster, and also they could understand the English part. But then they decided the next meeting that they would go back to translating because they knew the people in the neighborhoods were hearing the translated part. And so we wanted to make sure everybody that could have the opportunity to hear about Jesus would be able to have that. So this was Site 2. This was the other site. It was at an elementary school, and the kids program was at a high school. This was Aliaga. It was directly across from the Adventist church. Again, it was more or less outdoors. During the week, the week before, we got there on a Wednesday night, and then Thursday through the following Friday, we did training. So the kids there was 6 people doing public evangelism. So they practiced their sermons. Last time Anthony went, he did the adults public evangelism. So they practiced their sermons, learned to work with a translator, and then the kids figured out the crafts and the song service and things like that. And so we did a lot of training that week, how to go on visitations, how to interact with people, learning the language. I learned a few words. And so it was fun to watch them all. At the beginning, they were all super nervous about how it would go and doing things right, but then as the week went on, they got more and more, they got less nervous about doing it, and so it was fun that week. Everyone was trying to figure out what they would be doing. At the end of the week, there was an unfortunate, I'll get to that. So we had our transportation to the different sites. They were in these buses called jeepneys. And so the jeepneys, we would stick as many of us as we possibly could in there. The one thing we learned on a mission trip is that you can always fit more people. So it was very once we got to the individual sites, once we split off, there was more room, but it was kind of fun to all cram as many people as you could in there. At the end of the trip, we went to a waterfall, which was like 2 hours away, and so we rode in this for 2 hours, which was very entertaining. But yeah, speaking of transportation, at the end of our training week, there was an unfortunate experience that happened. The director of our program, the mission trip, he was on a motorcycle driving around there on a moped, and we're not exactly sure what happened, but there was a crash of some sort. And when he came off of that, he wasn't like necessarily physically injured. His knee was busted up a little bit and his tooth was chipped, but he had some sort of serious concussion. And so this was actually the day before the meeting started. And so the crash happened around 10 a.m. and at like 1 p.m. he sent a picture of himself to his wife and was like, "Oh, I chipped my tooth." And she was like, "What happened?" He was like, "Oh, I don't know, just I chipped my tooth." So she was like, "Something's not right." So she contacted us and was like, "Hey, like what's going on?" We were like, "We haven't heard anything, like what's going on?" So he was texting us, but he didn't know where he was, he didn't know what was happening. And this was like 4 hours later after it happened. I guess 3 hours later. And so some of our staff went trying to find him, and he didn't know where he was. They went to all the different hospitals trying to find him. So he had a really bad concussion. He lost about a couple weeks of his short-term memory. And so there's a couple things that were miracles. Is one, he actually was able to contact us, and in some ways there enough to be able to let us contact someone to be able to let us know that something was wrong, because he's in a foreign country, they don't know who he is, he doesn't know where he's at, and so we were able to find him. And the other thing is that, when they did the x-ray, they did CT scan, everything came back clear. And so that was definitely a praise too. And there was no external injury. Besides the concussion, everything else was good. So that was another praise. And we knew that it was definitely the devil working, because it was the day before the meetings. And he's the director, so he knows everything and knows all the things. And so we had to scramble, we had to switch a few people around doing different things. But we were able to start the meetings on Friday night as planned. And so he rested, and a couple, 3 days later, everything came back. There's still a little, obviously he doesn't remember the crash, the day of the crash necessarily, things around it, but he's basically back to normal now, completely back to normal, which is a praise, because it could have gone a lot worse. And the other thing is, when he had left that morning, he had left without his helmet, and he went, and then he came back and was like, "Oh, I really need to grab my helmet. Probably nothing will ever happen, but like I need to have my helmet." And so it could have been a lot worse had he not had his helmet. What we think happened is there was a moped in front of him, and the moped just stopped to turn left, but he stopped very suddenly, and so we think that he T-boned him, and Mr. Ted, which is the director of the program, went over. And so, so they took him, some people there took him to the hospital. You can tell it's a different country in that he's hobbling to the ambulance after a concussion, but in the end, it turned out well, and it was definitely a miracle that he was alive and that it turned out as well as it did. So Friday night, we went off to the first meeting. This was Site 1. We were hoping we had handed out invitations around, but you don't know how many people will show up. So the meeting started at 6:30, and this was the adult meetings. The first night there was around 60 people at both sites. Well, 60 people at site 1 and 60 people at site 2, and there's about 70 kids at site 1 and 70 kids at site 2. So that was really cool to see. And this is the kids' meetings. The kids there are very energetic, and so they love singing all the songs. This was at site 2, all the kids. The first night when they got there, they didn't have any chairs, so they all sat on the ground. This was at site 1 after the meeting. All the kids and all the kids there, a lot of them haven't seen Americans, so they were very interested in us, and all the people with blonde hair. One of the special parts of the mission trip is we got to go on visitations. And so every day we would either, the first part leading up to the meetings, we went and handed out flyers for the meetings. And so we would go into the areas surrounding where we would do the meetings and hand out flyers. This was a group of us on visitations one day. We would go out into the community, into the different neighborhoods. And that was interesting for me, just seeing how different people lived and where people lived. This area was a little bit out in the country, not quite in the city. And so we would hand them flyers and pray for them. One of the techniques that the kids started to do is they'd be walking alongside the road, and as a moped or motorcycle would walk by, they would stick their arm out. And every time they'd stick their arm out, the moped would slow down and they'd just take the flyers. So they just started like going in the road and handing out flyers to the people. This was a group of us on visitations. This day, I want to tell a story about a girl. The girl to my left, the day we did these visitations, they stopped at her house and invited her to the meetings, and her grandma. And so she came to the meetings, and she came almost every night, which was really cool. And she became one of my friends during the meetings. Her name was Joy, and her sister to the left there. And it was really cool because they're not Adventists, but to see the impact the meetings were having on them and the things that they were learning was really, really special. Her and her sister Rian, Joy didn't come quite every night. Her sister Rian came every night, which was the girl to her left. And the girl that's next to me, Joy came to the meetings, and then this girl to the left of me, Maxine, also came to the meetings. They didn't know each other. But when they started coming to the meetings, they became friends. And Maxine came every single night, and when it came time to stand up for baptism, she stood up too. So that was really special because you saw they had not known each other, Joy and Maxine, but they became friends at the meetings, and because they were both friends, they both wanted to come to the meetings. They became friends with me and my friend and the other girl, Jenna. And so it was really cool to see just their growth during that time. Very special people. And of course, all the kids, they were all so excited to see us. All these kids, they came to the meetings as well. So it was fun because we invited them, and then later I was looking back at pictures and I was like, oh, all of them that we invited came to the meetings. We also were able to, part of the visitations was going to different people in the community and singing for them and praying for them and sharing Bible verses. The person that drove us around, he knows so many people. And so it would be like, hey, we want to go on visitations today. Do you know somebody who's sick? Or do you know somebody we can sing to? Be like, okay, you take us to somebody new every time. And so, and they would, I would always wonder how he knew where he was going. Because he would just turn left and right and every which way. And then he'd be like, okay, we're here. And so we'd sing to people. This lady that we sang to, her daughter, her husband was coming to the meetings. And that was because her daughter, a few years back, was sick with some sort of disease that would be, I think it was some sort of cancer. And the church members in that area came and visited them and prayed for them. And soon after, she was healed from that. And so when we came to do the meetings, someone invited them, and her daughter knew about the meetings, so her husband was going to the meetings, which was very cool to see even though it was somebody that we hadn't impacted before, because of somebody else's work, somebody else is going to be impacted by the meetings. These kids, we went on visitations one day, and some of them were from the meetings, and they all just started following us. And so they go with us to the different houses and sing with us all the different songs. That was fun. This lady that's with us, one of the Sabbaths, she was going to the local Adventist church, but she wasn't baptized yet. So we went to go sing for her at her house, and when we got done, she was just crying because she was so happy that we came to visit her, but she was also so excited to be baptized the next weekend. So that was very special, and after we sang to her, I would come to the meetings every night. She'd have this big smile on her face, and she'd run and give me a hug, and was always crying. She was so excited to have us there. This family, we went, so there's the Adventist church that we went to, that our group went to. There was 3 or 4 ladies that their husbands weren't Adventists, but the wives would go to church. And so the guy in the striped tank top, his wife was an Adventist. And so we decided one of the Sabbaths that we were going to go sing to all the families that their husbands weren't Adventists. And so we sang to him, and then that evening he came to the meetings. So that was really cool. One of the times we went to the schools to hand out a book called The Story of Hope. We brought a bunch of books from America. And so, of course, all the kids were super interested in us, but we handed out about 100 books to the kids. Most of them know English, and so they were able to read the book. One of the days, the Adventist school there, they were celebrating 32 years of being a school, and so they had a parade around the city, and so they asked us to join their parade, and so we walked for about, I think, a mile and a half with them. But it was during the meetings, and so they had some things they wanted us to hand out, but we also had our flyers. And so as we were walking past people, we would run out of the parade and give people flyers. Doing it that way, you hand out a lot of flyers. One of the special things that we were able to participate is March 16 was Global Youth Day. And so the youth from the area, they went out to hand out school supplies to kids in the community. So we were able to participate with them, and it was really fun being in another country for Global Youth Day. Being able to participate in some sort of outreach for what they normally do. There's a lot of youth in that area, and the one thing that really impacted me about them is how on fire for God they are. They're so excited to be in church. They're so excited to do ministry, and so it was really, really cool to see that and to see how much they loved God. This was a group of them singing for one of the meetings. But it was really cool to see people from around the world. You know, you're all Adventists, and it was fun to see people from different countries. You all have the same beliefs. You're all going towards the same goal. That was really cool. This was towards the end of the meeting. We have a lot of invitations for baptism, and then also just appeals. And a lot of people made decisions, and on Sabbath, there was 15 people who are ready for baptism. And so that was really cool, seeing all the people that had come to the meetings, all the kids. There was a bunch of adults, but there was probably 7 or 8 kids and young people who got baptized. But the kids were really, really special. They were always so excited to see us. They would come and run up and greet us every time we had the meetings. Always so excited. Lots of very, very sweet people. This was Saturday night on the last day. All the kids came to the adult meetings, and they talked a little bit about what they did in their program. And so all the kids had crowns, and they sang "Jesus is Coming Again." So that was super special. I think. Oh, maybe it won't. It's gonna play a video. Anyways, I want to end off with this girl right here. In 2019, they like I said, Anthony and his group, they did a evangelistic series like ours, 16 days. And this girl, Sunshine, and all of her siblings and her family were converted. And then 5 years later, they were helping with the kids' meeting. So all the kids were section leaders. And it was really cool for me to see that the impact that Anthony and his group of people had made in 2019, 5 years ago, was impacting kids now. So 5 years later, they were able to help other kids learn about Jesus and be able to make an impact on them as well. And I think just one of the things that really impacted me on the trip was how God works in the little things. I think going on a mission trip, you're able to, because that's what you're there for. You see all the little ways God works. Little things like there was slides coming on right when we needed it. One of the times they had forgotten to put the PowerPoint for that night's message on the computer. And so there wasn't going to be any PowerPoint, but they looked in old files on the computer and they found something and they were able to quickly get it on right before the meeting. And so things like that seem little, it impacted things in a big way. And I think so often, at least for me personally, being at home, you cannot notice the little ways God works in your life, and you're just going about your daily life and not noticing those things that God does. But He does. He puts little miracles in your life, and He puts things in your way to be a blessing to your life. And so I think being on the mission trip really taught me that there's so many blessings God does here in my life that I don't take time to notice. And so I think that was one thing that I decided from the mission trip, that I want to keep noticing all the little ways God has worked in my life, and so that I can share those blessings with other people.
Amen.